Fairly busy day for the crew today on board. Many of them doing a lot of biological experiment work, especially right out of bed this morning. Starting off with Commander Chris Hadfield, who was taking some blood sample collections for the ongoing NASA vascular study, which is looking to determine the impact of long-duration spaceflight on the blood vessels of astronauts. Hadfield will also be conducting a conference with search and rescue specialists down here on the ground and doing some departure prep for his upcoming landing as he prepares to depart from the International Space Station alongside with Roman Romanenko and Tom Marshburn. They're looking to depart on May 13th, Houston time, leaving the International Space Station and for their eventual landing in Kazakhstan. Aside from that prep today, Hadfield right now is working with the microflow cytometer on board the station, and a little bit later this afternoon will be involved in a VIP public affairs event. Moving on, our Russian cosmonaut Pavel Vinogradov also taking some saliva and blood collections and storing them in freezers on the Russian segment for one of their ongoing biological studies. He'll also be on the hook to downlink some of the video from the docking of the 51 Progress vehicle that occurred just back on Friday. The teams were able to overcome a failed deployed antenna to guide the vehicle into a safe docking. Aside from that, Vinogradov will be working throughout the Russian segment to replace a number of smoke detectors, and within that he'll be assisted by his fellow Russian cosmonaut Alexander Mazurkin. Aside from assisting Vinogradov with that, Mazurkin involved in the lower body negative pressure training today. That's a technique used on board the station to help simulate gravitational stress on the astronauts' bodies. It can be used to increase the heart rate and blood pressure for these astronauts during their long-duration space flights. At the end of his day, Mazurkin will take part in the Interactions Experiment, which is a Roscosmos study of personal, cultural, and national differences between these crew members and the impacts that it has on mutual perception of each other and also their group structure. NASA astronaut Chris Cassidy spending a good amount of time today in the Columbus module, working with the ultrasound. He was doing a scan of his spine today. Aside from that, he'll be staying inside of Columbus to do some troubleshooting, checking out a leak on the water pump assembly number 2 in the Columbus laboratory. He'll be working with the Columbus controllers in Munich. Our third Russian cosmonaut, Roman Romanenko, also doing that lower body negative pressure training today and spending a good amount of time inside the Russian segment working on the electric nose experiment. This is an electronic device used to measure the crew's exposure to any bacteria or fungi that may be present in the atmosphere. Also doing some undocking prep work as Romanenko is the commander of that 33S vehicle that he'll be returning home in just under 2 weeks from now with Chris Hadfield and Tom Marshburn. NASA astronaut Tom Marshburn also working with that ultrasound on board the International Space Station quite a bit today. He was on the hook to do a scan of the carotid artery, also his bladder and his hand, and then getting a crew choice option. So he'll be working hand in hand with a team of biomedical scientists down here on the ground as he does that. These astronauts able to conduct diagnosable imaging ultrasounds with very little training using the devices on board. So aside from that, Marshburn also doing some departure prep as he prepares to return home as well. The other major activity taking place throughout this week on board the station will be involving the robotic arm and the external portion of the station. Today, ground controllers here in Houston are going to maneuver that robotic arm known as Canadarm2 over to grapple with the Dexter device, the special purpose dexterous manipulator, as they position it for the eventual start and resumption of the robotic refueling mission demonstration, a remote satellite servicing demonstration taking place in the external International Space Station structure. Those tasks will be picking up tomorrow and continuing throughout the end of the week.